Hello there, my very good friends. On today's wrestling news, we're going to talk all about Alexa Bliss blinding Randy Orton with a fireball on WWE Raw.
Raw stars have to pull double duty because of a massive COVID outbreak.
Is Vince McMahon about to book more romance angles in WWE?
Oh, please, God, no. And Raw is still a shambles, being written an hour before the show starts. I'm Adam Wilborn.
I'm Andy Murray.
And this is the news.
Okay, so let's kick things off by talking about the conclusion to last night's episode of Raw. Weird show, deeply weird show, but it closed with the return of Alexa Bliss, 2 weeks after being burned to a crisp, as Brian Alvarez would say, seemingly by Randy Orton. You know the end of that show, she was doused in gasoline, Randy had the lit match. We didn't see her go ablaze, but that was the illusion. Here we had Randy Orton fighting Triple H. The WWE made it very clear to say this wasn't a match, it was a fight. Triple H was in street clothes, all kinds of stuff went on, but towards the end Triple H got out the sledgehammer because of course he did. Stuff started going on, fiend things started happening, lights were going out, video screens were cutting off. The sledgehammer went on fire? Yep. Triple H teleported out of the ring, I guess. He just vanished. Alexa Bliss was in the ring, showdown with Randy Orton. She had pain on the glove. She threw the fireball right in Randy Orton's eyes, to be fair, and Raw kind of went off the air with Randy Orton scampering around going, oh, my eyes, whoa! The announcers were like, is he blind? What's going on here? There's a fireball. He might be blind. Continuing WWE's recent obsession with fire in this feud. Of course, Alexa maybe burned the other week, but the Fiend most definitely was burned to a crisp. Hell in a Cell to conclude that. What was it called? The Firefly Inferno. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yep. So it just makes me wonder, like, looking at this stuff, where do they go next, right? How do they escalate this? How do they pay this feud off? Because Randy Orton has already attempted murder on a murder clown. He has already, tried to set Alexa Bliss on fire. And now he has had this fireball thrown in his face, maybe temporarily blinded. It's like, how does it get worse? Like, how does it get more severe than this? Are they literally going to murder someone on TV? I don't know. Either way, this Raw ending has certainly gotten people talking, and I guess that's good.
I'll tell you how it gets worse, Andy Murray. A House of Horrors match, that's definitely worse.
Boom.
Someone's getting a fridge chucked at him, basically, and I will clarify what you said as well. Alexa Bliss wasn't set on fire because Randy Orton bitched out, which is why he had to bully Mark Henry or something last week.
Yeah,
Bray Wyatt, though,
hell?
yes, he was definitely set on fire. And, yeah, the Firefly Funhouse match, that's what you have to do. Like, it's such a... I don't know why they keep involving fire in it, because the Firefly Funhouse match is something that fans have a lot of faith in off the back of John Cena, and it's not exactly like you haven't got a great deal of content you can use with Randy Orton. I don't know whether, next week, as I suggested in our Raw preview podcast, Randy Orton's going to be at home recovering, and then there's going to be a knock at the door, or someone's going to ring the doorbell, and like kids used to, opens the door, and then there's someone's like bag of gear in there. Oh, but it's on fire, and he stops it out. Surprise! It's got loads of poo in it. But I don't know. There's a little callback to his history. I don't know. It's absolutely ridiculous. I don't know whether this was planned or not, but. Obviously, last night's show, as we'll get more into as we delve into last night's Monday Night Raw, was a fair bit topsy-turvy off the back of Drew McIntyre's announcement of his COVID diagnosis. And just to clarify with that as well, off the back of that, huge amounts of speculation that there is a massive COVID outbreak within WWE. I mean, it's not really speculation. It appears to be the case off the back of last night, where we saw a whole host of WWE stars pulling double duty. Jeff Hardy faced Jackson Riker in like a minute, losing to him by surprise roll-up, of course. And then Elias, Keith Lee and Sheamus beat Miz and Morrison, and then just went, should we have a fight? Then they just had a fight against each other, and Riddle faced Bobby Lashley, tapped out to him, and then faced MVP, and then got his head kicked in afterwards. It was all over the place last night's show, and like you say, it was topped and tailed with Triple H and Randy Orton. I thought Triple H was going to come out in his position as COO or whatever he is now and just sort of, solemnly, professionally explain the situation with Drew McIntyre and say, never mind, we're going to put on a great show tonight. And then in the end, they just went back to the age-old, your balls are in your wife's purse angle.
Yeah.
If this is a sign of things to come with this outbreak arguably getting worse before it gets any better, we're in for a ride before the Royal Rumble, Andy.
Yeah, so according to that report from Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful, the COVID outbreak has affected AEW and Impact as well. Sounds like potentially there was a lot of stuff like parties and things going on over Christmas and New Year and whatever else.
Unbelievable.
What a crazy situation. What a time we're living in. Last night, by the way, the first time that WWE has actually acknowledged somebody suffering from COVID on its roster. Drew, of course. They couldn't exactly get around it, I guess. He's, the top guy on Raw. It's probably safe to speculate on how this would have affected last night's Raw, including the card reshuffles, people pulling double duty. It was a weird-ass show, but they still had to produce 3 hours of television under these circumstances. No easy job.
No.
Give them a degree of credit for that. But Raw is usually kind of all over the place anyway. So what's the difference, right? What's the difference?
Yeah.
One big difference is that apparently Lacey Evans and Ric Flair
God.
is a romance angle now. Very interesting. I guess we've got another report here. Jim Ross on his Grilling JR podcast actually made the comment that he has heard that Vince McMahon is looking to add more romance storylines to WWE programming, which could be where this rancid Ric Flair Lacey Evans thing is coming from. A comment here, quote from Jim Ross saying, Vince always liked the sexual element, especially when we were TV-14 in the Attitude Era. He had the poetic and artistic license to do whatever the hell he wanted. That might be a return to their repertoire there. So we've seen all kinds of, romance-based storylines in recent months. We've had Buddy the Elf, Murphy and Aaliyah. We've had Angel Garza trying to seduce the camera. That seems to have been forgotten about. Are we going to see more? Perhaps. You'd look at this and think, well, Charlotte's involved in this Rick and Lacey thing, and Andrade's due to come back, and they're a real-life couple, so maybe they might do something with them. I don't know. We often call wrestling a soap opera. These are soapy elements. No huge surprises here, but Rick and Lacey sucks. Can we not do this for long, please?
It is the Dumb and Dumber gif or whatever it is with Jim Carrey going.
Yeah.
Inexplicable. Like you say, you sort of alluded to it yourself there, Andy. If only there was some sort of Lothario on Monday Night Raw who could, go around and seduce women rather than happily married man Ric Flair. But of course, legends, numbers, etc., etc. Sorry, Angel Garza, back to the 24/7 championship bollocks. But, we are just over a year removed, aren't we, from the whole Lashley, Rusev, Lana, Liv Morgan. That was 2019 Christmas time, wasn't it, if I remember rightly, that they stopped doing that, or it was, the wedding went down. And it does big numbers on YouTube, but is it that interesting? Am I that arsed? How many times has Charlotte Flair got in her dad's face and got pissed off with him? It's kind of played out a little bit, in my opinion, and, WWE cannot handle subtlety and nuance, and especially when it comes to romance stories, you need that. And I hate it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It's not why I watch wrestling personally. So maybe
exactly.
It is why some people do, but it's not why I personally watch wrestling.
And let's not entirely blame the COVID outbreak for how much of a shambles last night's Monday Night Raw was, because according to PW Insider's Mike Johnson, WWE up to their old tricks again, and by that I mean writing the show 10 minutes before the show starts. Well, in reality, they were apparently pulling the script together about an hour before the show began, which, like you say, Andy, partially you can excuse because, people have got to get tested and you can't, you don't know what's going on. But I will say this, and I say this every single time, with the knowledge that yes, things maybe have had to change last minute because of Drew being pulled, and literally the only match they had advertised for last night they had to get rid of because Drew tested positive. But you have a team of writers who have to work all week long on Raw. You're telling me every story had to be scrapped, and the stuff that didn't have to be scrapped was what you put out? That was the good stuff? Inexplicable.
It's a near weekly occurrence at this stage. You give them a certain degree of forgiveness this week because of everything that's going on. But at the same time, when does it change? I don't know. Either way, there will never be a Tuesday morning where we don't talk about this, I feel. So here we go.
Yeah. It's... I'm just going to wind myself up. Take a breath.
Questions.
Yeah, at WhatCulture WWE, if you want to get in touch with us. Everything Wrestling starts us off saying, morning guys, hope all is good. What moment do you feel is one of the biggest heartbreaks in wrestling? Mine would have to be when Rey Mysterio won the WWE Championship just to lose it an hour and a half later to John Cena. The babyface, Andy.
Yeah, Christ. So to keep it in kayfabe and not talk about people passing away and terrible real life tragedies like that. Something that kind of comes to mind really quickly is Finn Balor getting called up to the main roster, them showing all this faith in him straight away, winning the Universal Championship against Seth the Chef, and then immediately having to let go of it due to horrific injury and then spending all that time out. It's, in the grand scheme of things, it's not the most heartbreaking moment in wrestling history. It's just one that stands out immediately. That poor bugger. And he was never quite right on the main roster after that either.
No, exactly. I think that was his cards were marked, that he was unreliable as a champion, when in reality it was just a horrible accident. I'd couple all the sort of in-ring retirements or, your Edges, your Daniel Bryan's in there. But for me, back when Ric Flair actually made me feel emotion rather than just crying on cue, left, right and centre, it has to be I'm Sorry, I Love You from WrestleMania. Yes, I know Ric Flair wrestled again in Impact and what have you, but that hit me, and the Ric's face and Shawn's face and everything that went down then I thought was just heartbreaking but wonderfully emotional, and it's something I still not enjoy to look back on, but it still hits me there when I think about it. Matt Ryan, aka Aussie Dead, gives us our second question of the day. What show or which wrestler, when you first began watching wrestling, made you a fan of it?
Roddy Piper, straight away. It was the 1992 Royal Rumble, the first wrestling show that I saw, the first wrestling show that I had a VHS tape of. I was, 4 years old or something, and there's this guy on the TV kicking ass, and he's Scottish. It's very relatable straight away. He was the guy that hooked me straight away, purely for the reasons that we apparently shared a nationality. Of course, Roddy Piper is not, a full-on Scottish man. He was Canadian with a Scottish grandfather or whatever it was. But, when you're 4 years old and you're investing in this thing, you don't think of that. So yes, it was Piper.
Mine would have to be randomly Sunday Night Heat, because that was the sort of gateway for me. Of a mate of mine was like, have you seen this on Channel 4 in the UK on a Sunday afternoon? Put that on. That obviously shows clips of Raw and SmackDown, and I see the most electrifying man in sports entertainment, The Rock. And yeah, that's me, basically. Kind of an easy one. The Rock, probably a gateway for quite a few people to get into wrestling, but I couldn't help it. And then after that, me and Phil always talk about this. Scotty too hotty, too cool. We were too cool back in school. One of these days we're going to dress up as them, but not quite yet. Let's move on to the final question today. It comes from Jake, who says, if you got to pick just one storyline on Monday Night Raw currently happening that you could make magically disappear forever without a trace, what storyline would you choose? You are spoiled for choice here, Andy.
How could you limit us to just one? The show is not good at the moment.
He's got 4 first names and he's only letting us get rid of one.
Come on, Jake. I mean, for me, for my personal tastes, I think you could see this coming a mile off. It's the Bray Wyatt, the Fire, the Randy Orton, the Alexa Bliss. It's just... I don't want to watch a 40-year-old man rolling around in the ring going, my eyes have been burned by a fireball. I don't want to see Triple H teleporting and You know, if you guys like that stuff, fair play. We all have different tastes. It's all subjective. Go nuts, enjoy it. But for me, I would like to see it launched into the sun.
Yeah, I mean, there's a temptation here to just say all of Monday Night Raw.
Whole show.
I will just go with Retribution! Because poor Xavier Woods I mean, what was that last night? And I think every single part of this Retribution storyline could be utilised better. Like, you've got a great head of us, like Mustafa Ali could be brilliant in any other position. Same for Dominic Dijakovic, Mia Yim, Dio Madden. You've got Shane Thorne. Like, they could all be utilised far better than, well, Shane Thorne wrestling with a paper plate on his face, if I'm perfectly honest. So, yeah, just get rid of all that. It's clearly not worked, and they're clearly kind of giving up on it anyway because they just had a match this week, and that was about it. Let's move on to today's and finally, and something nice to end today with. This is from Cody's Instagram story, revealing that he and the rest of the AEW lot took Amanda and Brody Lee Jr. to Disney World for Brody Lee Jr.'s birthday. Just nice things like that make you think maybe everything's going to be all right, eh, Andy?
Nice to have a glimmer of hope in this wretched period of existence, and good to see AEW continuing to do right by the Huber family.
Exactly. Let us know your thoughts on that and all today's news stories in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And subscribe to What Culture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from for daily wrestling podcasts. I'm sitting down with Michael Sidgwick and Michael Hamflett to talk about Monday Night Raw later. That's going to be fun. What Culture Wrestling, as I said, wherever you get your podcasts from. At What Culture WWE, if you want to send us your Twitter questions and anything like that. And you can follow both of us on there. You can follow Andy Murray at
Andy H. Murray. The H stands for Hurl, because that's what I did when I saw Ric Flair and Lacey Evans.
You can follow me on Twitter. Oh, I threw up my mouth a little bit. Adam Wilborn, follow us all at What Culture WWE. But for now, my thanks to Andy Murray. Thank you for watching, and we will see you soon.